All right. I want to start off the show by saying shout out to Singapore. We noticed, of course, number one listening country is the United States. Number two is Singapore. So we want to hear from you. If you're from Singapore and you listen to Fine Time, drop us a line at Fine Time Podcast on Twitter, DM us, do something. We want to know. We want to hear from somebody who is listening from Singapore. That would be great. Shout out to Singapore. Let's start the show. Hello, party people. It's your boy Dre. It is the Fine Time. How does the Kevin feel today?
I feel pretty gosh darn good.
Have you ever been to the Singapore?
I have not been to the Singapore.
Okay. Steve, has Steve been to the Singapore?
No.
Okay. I gotta make a confession to our new Singaporean friends. I'm very sorry about this, but I'm gonna tell you my ignorance about Singapore. I looked up the country on Wiki to see what language was predominantly spoken there. It's English. Duh. Like a dumbass. I mean, I don't know why I didn't think that.
If it makes you feel better, Singapore, shortly before we started recording, Andre also admitted that he thought camels had oil in their humps when he was a little kid. So,
yes, until 2018,
it's not you, slide. It's him.
And if this makes Steve your new favorite Fine Time character, he knew the entire time that English was your main language in Singapore. So, send those DMs to me.
No, you didn't. There's no way you knew that shit.
And I knew this whole time that camels didn't have oil in their humps. So Andre's the only dummy.
Okay, sorry. I believe the camels had oil in their humps till 1988-ish. I apologize for my former self. Since you decided to rat me out on the air, Kevin, you're going to go first here on what we've been playing, especially since this was induced by me.
Yeah, I think thanks to I think Andre actually just got sick of me never talking about arcade games on here, so he gave me a little push into the shallow end. This wasn't a heavy duty initiation.
You figured me out.
Yeah, Andre very, very nicely sent me a copy of Atari 50 for PS5 for Christmas, which I was quite happy to receive. I'd actually been eyeing up Atari 50 shortly before Christmas, so I'm glad I held off. It's a great experience. I think, and I kind of knew what to expect going in just from reviews, but this is very much not another like Sonic's Genesis collection or just one of those assortment of games with. You get the list, play the games, and then maybe there's a little bit of bonus material on top. It's very purposefully built from the ground up as a experience. So kind of part of it is there's an education aspect to it in addition to an entertainment aspect. And they do that really well. Specifically, the pacing is very well done because the one thing maybe I was a little bit concerned about was, am I going to find this engaging or is it going to be a little bit too much, long interviews or too much reading or too much of anything. But they do that really well as far as, there's photos intermixed with interviews, intermixed with like even old news clips. They have documents you can zoom in and look at, just little quotes. And then of course the games. So the kind of constant mixing everything up and the cycle is very easy to get hooked on. I had that on last weekend and I sat there for, 3.5 hours and I didn't turn it off because I was bored. I turned it off because my wife was giving me the side eye that it was time to turn it off.
Wow. So you really got into it then.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, it wasn't, it doesn't, I think because of that mix, even if it was just playing games, I think, to some degree, everything would kind of meld together, but because it's not just education experience, it's not just video, it's not just playing game after game after game. It's pretty easy to stay engaged and, just feel like everything that you have coming to you is relevant to just the way they've structured the timeline of everything, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I also kind of got a new appreciation for Atari. Honestly, most of my experience with Atari, I have a 2600 at home, and then growing up, the time I'd have the flashbacks or whatever, but it was all pretty much limited to 2600 games. Of course, at the barcade or whatever, I've played asteroids and stuff here and there, but just as far as kind of seeing a little bit wider breadth of what Atari had to offer, even in the early days, kind of made me appreciate them a little bit more. So I thought a good way to kick this. Oh, did you have something, Andre?
Yeah, actually, before you get into the games a little bit, I want to talk a little more about presentation and why I really appreciate Atari 50. Just from afar, I don't have my own copy yet, but I do want to play this. And I don't know if either of you played Namco Museums on PS1, when it was an actual museum. You know what I mean? You'd walk around and see stuff. And, back then it was pretty limited. But yeah, you could look at their arcade board or here's the cabinet art and stuff. That was wild at the time. Now that seems standard, right? Nobody ever did that. Now when they put out an Namco Museum, like on Switch, the museum part is completely not even a factor anymore and hasn't been for 20 years. But they still call them that. I remember there was an Activision compilation for PS2, I think, and the presentation on that was excellent. They had interviews from the day, they had commercials and stuff. It was fascinating. And when I saw Atari 50, I'm like, yes, this is what we should be doing now in this 4K era. We can really restore all that stuff. So it sounds, from what you're saying, it's kind of giving me exactly what I want. I got to get my own now because of that.
It's definitely very even, and there's a lot of stuff there that you don't, if you really want to dig into it, there's quite a few scanned documents from Atari offices back in the day and stuff like that. So if you're really interested in digging into some of your favorite games, there's probably something that you can find there that you're not going to just find on the average YouTube video or whatever. One other thing, actually, before I get into a few of these games, they do have some kind of updated versions of games or even some modern mashups that kind of incorporate multiple games, and all of that stuff is done tactfully, which is nice too. It doesn't feel like it was just kind of tacked on or just done for the sake of being able to say, hey, we have something new. It seems like they kind of use their discretion as to where they would select to do those things. But right. I did want to, I picked out 3 of the original games that I wanted to highlight, all games that I've never played, that I found specifically interesting. So the first one, Fire Truck from 1978. And one thing too, it's worth noting, I played a lot of this with my son because, any of these that are multiplayer, if you have a second controller hooked up, you can play multiplayer, and Fire Truck was the one we had the best 2-player time with.
All right.
So this is a black and white game where the actual cabinet, there would be a seat in the front with a steering wheel, and then the second player stands behind that seat, and there's a second wheel behind that seat. So player 1 drives the front half of the fire truck, and then player 2 drives. So it's like a fire truck that articulates in the center. So player 2 steers the back half, and you have to steer through a path and avoid the walls and obstacles and oil on the ground or whatever to see how far you can get. And it actually is. Especially for 78, I thought for them to be able to incorporate 2 players into a game like that, it worked much better than I would have expected at first glance. So
yeah, I was going to say, for a game from 1978, I didn't even know games had sit-down cabinets back then. I always thought of pole position or something like that. It was just 81 as being the first. I mean, I don't know if it actually was the first, but that's kind of what I thought in my head. So for something even a few years prior to that to have a sit-down 2-player cabinet is kind of wild.
Yeah, well, sit down and stand up, so they got the whole thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did get to play this at my barcade a number of years ago in the before times. You remember the before times, right? Where we all didn't think about, touching things in
the Rona
that other people touched. And I gotta say, Fire Truck is a lot of fun when you're with somebody else and you're 2 or 3 mules down and no one's keeping track of who's steering what. So But I gotta say, I could not imagine playing Fire Truck by myself. That sounds miserable.
Yeah, I was glad to have a second player there. But even for my son, he's 8, and it was very easy for him to be able to kind of like understand what was going on there and pick up and play real quick. So yeah, that was a great time. The second one, Quantum, this one's probably a little bit more known, I would imagine. This is a trackball game where you have a trailing line behind you, and you basically have to encircle your enemies to destroy them. So all of a sudden there's a number of enemies, and you just have to use that trackball to basically make a circle. And if you can make a circle around any of those enemies, then it gets rid of them, but they can multiply pretty fast. So it gets fairly hectic. And one thing that I even thought was neat, so for the top score for that game, you can actually just draw your initials with the trackball rather than typing them in. So that was probably a cool little boon for whoever had the top score to be able to draw a dick or whatever.
You saying that actually unlocks a memory. I feel like I did play a game before where you do put in your initials or whatever the fuck you want with a trackball. So maybe I had played Quantum before. The name isn't like immediately familiar, but I'm sure when I play it, I'll probably know what it is.
Yeah, I would say out of any of the games that I've played on there so far, that was the one that like captured my attention for the longest. I sat there and played that for probably, and I was trying to get through these just for the sake of being able to experience. And then all of a sudden I got on Quantum and I spent probably 20-25 minutes, and it's a fairly simple game, but it's just delightfully addictive.
Right.
And then the third one, Liberator, also from 82, which is basically Missile Command in reverse. So there's 4 ships in the 4 corners of the screen. And so you move around your shooting reticule or whatever, and you have to shoot down missiles that come from the planet that's in the center of the screen. And that planet is kind of turning and moving. So there's bases where those missiles are coming from on the planet. So you have to shoot them before they get from the planet to you. But you can also just shoot the bases themselves, and each level that progresses has a new planet. So even just artistically, it looks pretty interesting. So I had a lot of fun with that one as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying this. I wasn't sure, like, even if you didn't get into the games, I thought you would just enjoy the presentation so much that it would be like, okay, if you don't really care about the games, fine, you could enjoy the history or whatever. But it seems like you actually do enjoy some of these games too.
Yeah, well, and I think it's important because of the way that it's presented, because to be honest, if this was just a large list of old Atari arcade games, it would be hard, because then I don't even know where to start, right? And to be able to just like sit and work systematically down a list from top to bottom, that's not really enjoyable to me, because, it just feels like you're going to wind up having to dig through a lot of crap, but to be able to have the time to get the context and the history to these, and even just like look at the machines themselves and kind of like understand some of the story behind it, or what the design philosophy was or whatever, it kind of gives you a reason to want to play those before you do. So each one is exciting, even if you're not enjoying the game as much.
Right. All right. I mean, that sounds great. Yeah, now I got to get my copy. See, I knew this would happen. You talk about this on here, and you're like, God damn it. So we all have to do that. How are those graphics on PlayStation 5? Are they just the pixels are hot, right?
Very graphic-y. Very graphic-y.
Okay. Because I was thinking about like Switch, I was like, no, if this game really relies on presentation, you need that like sharpness of it. Anyway, who wants to go? You know what? I'll go next, because we're all, I think, me and Steve. Well, I'm not going to totally complain. Steve's going to do the bitch fest, so we're going to save that for last. He mad, y'all.
Well, it's okay. I contributed to some of what you did this week too.
Well, I'm going to also be faster about this probably, because I don't have a whole lot to say about either game that I'm going to talk about right now, which is 2 of them. First of all being Doki Doki Literature Club. Doki Doki Literature Club Plus for PS5. You want to talk about graphics on PlayStation 5, baby. This graphic novel, this visual novel, I tell you what, the PS5 isn't breaking a sweat. I bet the entire thing fits in RAM. What
many? What FPS does it run at?
Oh, I'm sure it runs at 360 of it.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm sure a fair amount of people have heard of this game. It's a dating sim with a twist. That's all I can really say. Gee, I wonder what that twist is, right? I think a lot of people, even if you don't know, I think everyone who sees this knows something sinister is going on here. Remember when I surmised on our previous creative endeavor that Bug Snacks was going to be a secret horror game? Remember, that's what I thought the whole time. That cheery song, that Caro Caro Bonito song with the lyrics and everything, and like the creepy, it gave me that vibe. And I was like, something's fucked up about this game. And me and Kevin have played through Bug Snacks. There is something fucked up about that game, but that game is rated E10, right? It's not like going to be a horror game, you know? Doki Doki Literature Club Plus is rated mature and has this very cutesy cover, so you know they're going to try to fuck you, you know? And it's like, okay, right when you turn on the game, it really hits you with some bullshit. It says all the characters in this game are over the age of 18. Sure. Okay, whatever you say. No, they're not. They just had to say that to appease Sony because they would never let it on there. Oh, man. But there is a lot of content warnings up front, and there is, like, if you really want to read about what's in the game, they say you can read it, but there is spoilers, but you can know before you go in, just in case some people would be disturbed by this kind of stuff, because honestly, it's a pretty fucked up game. It's pretty fucked up. So, you know what I mean? You kind of, if you don't want to fly blind to that kind of stuff, and I appreciate the developer doing that, but, yeah, I don't know what else to say about it without spoiling it. I mean, it starts out like a standard visual novel with some dating options, right, Steve? And then not too long into it.
Here's why Andre owns this game. A while ago, we were talking about spoilers everyone knows, and I somehow got to, well, look, after a while, there's just some things everyone knows. Like, everyone knows what the deal with Doki Doki Literature Club is. And Andre's like, I certainly do not. I managed to ignore everybody on the internet in 2017. I have no idea. So instead of doubling down, I waited until this game is on fire sale, and I sent this guy a copy.
On PlayStation 5. the most chintzy PlayStation 5 disc anyone could possibly own. I can't believe I'm putting a disc in a system almost upside down again to fucking play this thing.
Okay, I'm just there. I can't send digital gifts on the PS5 or any of these.
I appreciate it. Hey, it came with stickers and stuff. Like, you're
gonna have the most fly trapper keeper in school. Let me tell you.
Kids would get, oh my god, imagine a moral panic about Doki Doki Literature Club, like, on the news and shit, once people find out what those stickers are from and how fucked up that game is.
Yeah, but that would involve people having to admit knowing what's going on. If you're looking at them without context, you don't know.
Yeah, I guess not. But anyway, they play it perfectly. It's a really well-paced game. They don't wait too long to really start getting in there with you. There's a few different endings. I think I got the most standard ending. Steve, I don't really know how to explain what I did without spoiling, but whatever, we can talk about it another time. But yeah, if you've never played Doki Doki Literature Club and you just know, like, man, there's weird things that happen in the game, go play it. If you haven't been spoiled already, it's honestly a lot of fun.
When you talk about fucked up, is it just like morbid or like grotesque or gory, or what's the
morbid, grotesque, up? All of everything you just said, plus psychologically just fucked. There's a lot of things they talk about that are just like, oh man, the entire premise once you get to the meat of the matter, shall we say, a lot of people could find that pretty disturbing. You know what I mean? So it's all of the above, basically, not just gore, but it's an adult's game.
It stays text adventure the whole time, though. Hey?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's really out there. But I like that type of fucked up shit, so I find it very entertaining. Even though it was kind of like ugh sometimes. But yeah, another game I played was Uncharted. Drake's Fortune, the PS4 trilogy that's been up since, what was that, 2015? okay, like I've never played this game before. I never played any Uncharted before. And you heard me bitch on this show about playing through the Jack trilogy sometime last year. I don't think Naughty Dog learned a thing from Jack 3 to this game. It is okay, Kevin. Okay, I understand we bitch about this era of video games a lot on the show, but like honestly, was like 2007 like the worst time for video game design?
Yeah, that was peak bad. Well, I think Uncharted is. I played through this just over a year ago as well, and it's especially soulless even for that era.
Yeah, man. Like, it's the epitome of mid to late thousands AAA trash. Like it's everything I don't like. Oh God, the climbing and the crappy jumping. Oh, my worst nightmare. You know, I'll put up with it in Horizon because I have to or whatever, right? Like, cause it's such a great game otherwise, but yo, man, it's just the bad QTEs, the boring scripted sequences, and the scripted sequences where it's like, okay, I don't know what the fuck you want me to do or shoot or whatever, so I don't die in 5 seconds, so I don't have to be put back at this stupid checkpoint. Thanks a lot, Jack and Daxter. It's just safe, boring PG-13 slop. But I'm going to play them all. I'm going to play all the Uncharted, and in fact, I'm going to do the $10 upgrade for PS5 so I can play Uncharted 4 and Hogwarts Legacy at 120 frames a second. I'm going to do it all. I'm committed.
Jeez.
I'm doing it. So look forward to that. But also, this feels like, Kevin, this Uncharted feels like a PS2 game in a lot of ways. Did you feel that way? It didn't really feel very like of that era. It felt like almost something they started on PS2 and like carried over.
There's definitely like a gameplay level of unpolished. My least favorite part of that game was the water ski or the jet ski part or whatever. That was miserable, and that it felt very like PS2 janky specifically.
Yeah. But even some stuff down to the UI, the way like the buttons appear on the screen, it felt very PS2 for some reason. And yo, I can't get over this. Nathan Drake kills a lot of people. Like a lot of people. I killed hundreds of people in this game. Hundreds. Where I'm just going here to look for this treasure. It felt a little strange. I gotta tell you. But besides that, it's just like, yo, it's just weird to have a game. Look, I understand it's a video game. You're not really thinking about body count sometimes, but like at a game where it's trying to be fairly realistic, you're just like these 3 spelunkers out spelunking. You kill a lot of people. How are they this trained to do this?
They have a hired goon breeding program on that island.
Yeah, speaking of breeding programs, like, how about like the Resident Evil monsters that show up at the end that just go rawr and just like run at you? It's just like, okay, now that's happening. I don't know, man. I'm gonna play them all though, so look forward to this next week. I'm going to play them all. So anyway, hopefully they get better. I always hear they get better as they go along. Like later ones are a lot better, and I really genuinely am interested in finding out. So I'm going to do it. But Steve, you played some excellent games, way better than Uncharted, right?
Oh, I did, but I'm not talking about those today. I've played... Aww. Yeah, I've been playing a whole lot of games, but they're going to be tied into other projects. So look forward to all of that. But then I remembered in the meantime, oh shit, I'm on a video game podcast and I need to talk about other things I've been playing. So, you know how Devolver does around Christmas time. Don't buy games until tomorrow. That's when we're having our sale.
I love that they do that. They're so cool for doing that.
Yeah, and then they have their sale, and then Steve loads his SD card on Switch with all kinds of goodies. And then Steve looks at his SD card slot and realizes, I better start playing some of these so we can clear up space. And I was able to clear out 2 of them right away because these are some shit, Devolver. How the hell did you decide to fill in the calendar with something like Crossing Souls? I don't know if you guys know what this is, but let me start with this. You know how everyone started complaining about AI art around last fall?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very valid complaint in a lot of areas. But I don't think it started last year. I think they started it with this game when someone in an indie boardroom somewhere said, I want to make a game that invokes the 80s and 90s family adventure movies with a little bit of Earthbound that I've never played and a little bit of Zelda that I haven't played in years. But I don't want to make it myself. If only there was some algorithm that can make this game for me. So then we go to our cast of 5 characters. Yes, 5 characters. We have boy, nerd boy, token black kid, girl, and boy's younger brother who loves pranks. You want to talk about, and if we want to talk about being uncomfortable with the way minorities are treated, black boy's name is Big Joe.
Oh, come on, man.
And he works for and his mother owns a corner market, and he has him move fruit crates to demonstrate that's how strong he is. That's how they show you, the player, that he is the strong one.
2 things I want to interrupt with right now. One, I'm looking at a screenshot of Crossing Souls. The character portraits look like fucking NFTs. They look like, seriously, they look like a monkey, bad monkey, whatever those are fucking called, except like a person.
The Burger King Kids Club, if you remember them, has more personality than this.
That's exactly what I was reminded of when I saw this. I was like, where's the kid in the wheelchair? Like, that's literally what I thought when I saw the cast of characters. And then number 2, you reminded me of a very bad game for PS4, The Order 1886, which you should play because it's actually really funny. And I forgot what review I saw of this game, a video review where they broke down the personalities in the game much like you did, but instead they had Tough Lady and Ethnic Tough Lady, which reminded me of exactly what you said there. But anyway, go on about this NFT AI art game.
So yeah, boy is spurred on to adventure because younger brother who likes pranks has a big secret to show the gang. So for the first hour or so, it's on you to wrangle the gang in a series of very poor tutorials around town. And it's just so bad. You got tutorials and chatter that go nowhere, and it all and you know what this kid discovered? It's a dead body. So now we got to bring Stand By Me into this. I told you it was movies.
Oh boy.
And then they just talk around some more. And then we find a visor on this dead body that sees ghosts. Oh, good. We can finally do shit now. But it doesn't matter. You see ghosts and then you smack and shoot them and wait for more cutscenes to play. None of this is fucking worth it because there's no real stakes. There's pretend army guys that pop in sometimes, and that's not worth it. There's some animated cutscenes that look like they're from the 70s or 80s that look cool, but I'm sure were on YouTube for years, so I'm not going to play through that to see those.
Wait a second. Are you saying that the animated clips in here are not made for the game? They're just clips from animations?
No, they're clips for the game, but, it's... I guess they're supposed to be cutscene-esque, but it's more like back in PlayStation when they would throw in FMVs that were tangentially related to the game you were playing. Like, it's definitely those characters, but it's not necessarily related to what you're doing at that time.
How long is this?
I don't know. I'm not finishing it. I was in there for about an hour and a half before I was like, you know what? This is a colossal waste of time.
Oh boy. Okay.
I have to ask, is there any chance that just because the vibe of this game is like kind of up your alley in general that you're specifically being harsh on it, or is it that like fully bad?
It's partly that. It's partly because it's from Devolver and I've expected published by Devolver and I've expected better from that label, even though I would say this is worse than The Messenger as far as things from Devolver.
It is not a Fine Time episode until we shit on The Messenger, baby. That's one of my favorite pastimes.
So that got deleted about an hour and a half later, and I turned on the Red String Club. Now, people who have been listening to us for a while might remember when I made these guys play a little game called Valhalla, which was a near future cyberpunk bartending game to mixed results. Kevin didn't like it, as I recall. And, this starts off with its own breed of bartending in the near future. Easy enough to follow so far. Then we have to access the mind of an android patron. And in her past, she was a cyberpunk 2077 customization surgeon or something, because we have to start getting clients and we have to start performing surgery on them based on their specifications. Okay, fine. I'm here for variations of things I like, but you get mold. You get like this mold of skin that you have to reform like clay, and you have to spin it around and shit. And this was definitely made with a mouse and shit in mind, and not playing with a controller.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, there's a touch screen thing you can use too, but my hands are way too stupid to figure it out, even with a stylus. I'm inclined to say in this particular case, it was me and not you, but oh my God, this was not a strong first impression for Red String Club.
How did you enjoy like the story or people besides like the actual gameplay quibbles that you have?
I mean, I was enjoying it right up until I hit that roadblock.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you think you could stick with it because you like the characters and story so much you want to see what happens
can't
next?
Stick with it because you need to make this mold perfectly, or it won't insert, or the game won't let you continue. They give you a mold and you have to whittle it down like we're playing like Patrick Swayze's Ghost or some shit. And we're spinning around, and you gotta get it just so, and you can't really do that with a controller or my dumb hands with a stylus. And since I can't get it in just right, you can't like have it like slight imperfections because it's a video game, and cut me some fucking slack and let me move along so I can enjoy the game.
You can't Spider-Man 2018 it and just like press square to just keep going and fuck this puzzle or whatever.
No, none of that. So Red String Club is not going to be finished by Steve either.
Who will it be finished by?
I'm sure people that bought it on Steam enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, I'm looking on Steam right now, and it does say all reviews very positive. So,
or heck, even people without stupid hands like me can enjoy it.
I guess people on Steam have mice, so
they have meese, unless they're all playing on a Steam Deck. No, you have a little touchpad, huh? I think on the Steam Deck.
Look, I'm sure I could have did it with the stylus if I had this graphic, but I'm just too stupid. My hands are just too stupid. Okay, I can admit this about myself.
Steve, stupid hands.
If you want to cleanse your Devolver palate, Minute is free on PSN Plus Royale with cheese. I have to plug Minute like every once in a while because nobody plays it. Did you play? Have you played it, Andre?
I have not.
Oh, okay. It's fantastic, and it's like 2.5 hours.
Okay. Well, how about that? Minute, then. We should all play Minute.
I think we'll be back in a few minutes after we take this break.
Oh, man. Finally, he threw us a break.
Well, that was a very normal break, and there were no naked shower times or nothing. Isn't that right, fellas?
So says you. I don't know what you were doing on break, but can't speak for me, buddy.
I think he's trying to be coy.
Yeah.
I was doing very normal things like rereading the notes and seeing if anything came on that we might need to talk about at the last second and refilling my water. I was a very responsible
liar.
host.
He was right in the sexy shower with Andre and I.
Yep. Just didn't want to admit it.
He's toweling off his mane of hair as we speak.
Steve has not had a mane of hair since college. And even then, he lost most of it.
He's using a tea towel on
I was going to say, even then, would you have called it a mane?
No, it was falling out then.
All right. On a happier note, in VR, you can have all the manes of hair you want, Steve.
Yeah, but not if you own a original Oculus Quest. Facebook said they're going to be getting rid of support for the original Oculus Quest, which you may remember only came out in 2019.
Yeah, and didn't you have to have a Facebook account to even use it?
You sure fucking did, Andre.
Yeah, which I found insane. An insane requirement. It's like, no, I don't care what it is, whether you like Facebook or not. Even if it was like you have to have a Twitter account to use X or whatever. It's like, no. But like, anyway, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I mean, I know earlier we talked about not this show, but in other shows we talked about PSVR 2 not having backwards compatibility with things that came out already. But to not even be providing security updates or customer support for things on your label after that brief a time, that can't be a great way to inspire consumer confidence, right, guys?
It almost makes me think that this VR stuff is going to be the domain of consoles or console manufacturers at this rate. I don't think the PC space, considering how Wild West it can be about this stuff, is going to be the way people are going to largely adopt this. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to be largely from PSVR 2 or some other solution from another company like Microsoft or Nintendo, Kevin.
Well, I think Oculus Quest was a standalone unit, was it not? You didn't have to have it hooked up to anything, and that is the only viable alternative to me from having it tied to a console, like you said. That makes more sense. But a standalone unit, that seems that much more that they would need to maintain that confidence from the customers.
Right, and you can't just give up after like four years. That's just so. Look, it happens in the world of like, smartphones, right? Not every, only iPhones from like, I don't know, 2016 and onward are still updated or whatever. But just because they're not updated doesn't mean they're not secure. You can still use an iPhone 5S or something and be like totally fine, right? And
but
like
even sorry, go ahead.
No, say it.
Even for console manufacturers, if Sony would have came out with the PSVR and all of a sudden, shortly after said, okay, we kind of, this was a fuck up, we shouldn't have come out with this, we're not going to support it any longer. At least they've still got their core customer base that's probably not going to abandon them just over that. Something like Oculus, if that's the flagship product that you're abandoning, I mean that's kind of severing the head off of the entire community. The hardcore fans are going to be the ones that bought into that in the first place.
I agree. And that's why it just doesn't feel great. Maybe they feel like those hardcore people, it's like, oh, whatever, they moved on to a Oculus Quest Max 3 or whatever I don't know the names. Well, didn't we talk about one recently at $1,600? I feel like we talked about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's my main crux for all this. They need to start getting their shit together with support and some kind of degree of what works and what doesn't. Otherwise, this really isn't going to have any future as a consumer product to me. I just don't see this becoming that mainstay in living rooms that what was that thing I saw at Disney World a million years ago? The Carousel of Progress said it was going to be in the future. I know I'm making very esoteric Disney references again. I'm sorry. But they towards the end, there was a whole thing at the end where, oh, who knows what the future will bring? And there was this old man sitting with a visor like, oh, it's like it'll be like the future. Like, it's not going to be like that at this rate. And they're not for charging $1,600 for something that's only going to be in use for a year.
Yeah, and that I can play Beat Saber on. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing for me. It's like, not only are we paying this much, we're paying $1,600 for, like, to play Resident Evil 8 in VR. Like, is that really... I don't know, man. Until they can have that really unique experience. People have found
other uses for those things as well, though, Andre.
Okay, look, man.
But what good does that do if it won't connect to the internet, Kevin?
$1,600 Pornhub is really not it, man. Sorry. Like, you got to do better than that. You got to promise me better than porn.
Just to drag Google into this conversation for a second, because I'm sure Facebook is going to just try and do their best to lock this thing down and brick it once they're no longer supporting it. As much as we shit on Stadia, they just recently finally put the final nail in Stadia. I know that they did issue an update for the Stadia controllers so that you could unlock them and use them as a normal Bluetooth controller for your other devices. And so at least good on them for that. I can't see that being the case here. I would imagine Facebook just wants you to pitch this thing in the garbage the day they shut it down.
Yeah, you are right about that. It feels like they don't even want you to use it. Like, I'm sure you're going to be able to use the PSVR 1 from now until the end of time. Like, Sony doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they're moving on. The library doesn't carry, but at least they're, you know what I mean? You can still play that stuff. I just don't know with this market. Like I said, I feel like the way to mainstream acceptance at this point is from a console. But we'll see, I guess. Okay. Everyone ready for a good LOL at Ubisoft? Because, boy.
I said we. Yes, I am ready.
No, you can't speak that language here. That's very confusing.
We what? Finish the sentence.
Never mind. These high road jokes are way too much for Fine Time Club.
How about you tell good jokes?
How about you just get on my level, Andre?
Okay, Ubisoft, LOL, because, okay, they've had a week. Let's just go through them and LOL at them one at a time, right? So it started with, they announced that Skull and Bones was delayed again. It's supposed to come out in March 2023 at long last, and now it's delayed to early next fiscal year. That could mean fucking anything. That could mean a couple months from now. That could mean September. Who knows? They announced this game at E3 2017, guys, and I remember that press conference. Like, distinctly.
See, I remember it too, and this is where I'm going to admit, I thought this was quietly canceled.
We did for years.
Like a certain, Beyond Good and Evil 2 was, but...
Oh, we'll get to that, because they did that too this week.
Why don't we... one thing at a time.
Oh, yeah, but anyway, Skull and Bones. You thought they canceled it?
Well, not officially, but... I thought it was just one of those things that, we just weren't going to talk about it anymore.
Like their port of Steep to Switch, remember? It was in the sizzle reel in the January 2017 presentation, and it just never came out. And then it was canceled on Twitter to a reply from someone else. Hey, what happened to Steep on Switch? We decided to, some PR bullshit, use our resources elsewhere, so blah, blah, blah. But... I thought this game was really strange from the beginning. It's okay, they're just going to do Ass Creed 4, the naval battles, but a whole game. But now the moment for that is well past. And you're right, Steve, it disappeared for years until it resurfaced as a PS5 Series X game. So it's okay, I guess they're still making this, but delayed again. So what's a little longer, right? After 6 years. This information, though, was part of a larger Ubisoft financial report that confirmed the cancellation of 3 unannounced games, they said in here. This is on top of the 4 that they canceled last July, 4 unannounced games. What the hell is going on over there? Are they just... Here's the thing about Ubisoft. You can say what you want about, the Ubisoft open world maps and all the doodads and the Far Cry and the Ghost Recon or whatever. They were at least delivering consistent products on a basis, several games a year. You know what I mean? They were putting it out, and their pipeline for development was honestly probably the best in the business. They got their games out, and they made games, big ones. Right? So you couldn't knock them for that. But now it just seems like they're scared to do anything because nothing they can do can be a hit.
The ongoing canceling of these unannounced games doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because I'm sure as a publicly traded company, they're still not required to announce every time they cancel unannounced game, right? Like that shit happens all the time, and we hear about it years after the fact. So
yes.
why not just say nothing? Right, we don't know how far along these into development these were, so why mention it at all? Because it doesn't look good any way you spin it.
It really doesn't. It seems like self-sabotage. And well, after this whole presentation, their stock tumbled 10%. So like, I mean, they didn't really have to do this to themselves, but they did. But part of not having hits seems to be the tried and true as well, because they said that Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Just Dance 23 underperformed, which, I mean, look, we don't know what their projections were. I doubt they were out of control like Square Enix or Capcom or something, you know, where something could sell 7 million copies. So it's like, well, that's not enough, you know? If Ubisoft is saying it, I think I'm inclined to believe it.
I don't understand how Just Dance can ever underperform. They've been releasing this religiously year after year. They should know exactly what it's going to sell. What happened between Just Dance 2022 and Just Dance 2023 that caused a problem here?
They stopped making Wii and Wii U versions, maybe? Maybe that's the reason.
I still love that they stopped making the Wii U version before they stopped making the Wii version.
Yeah, because I feel like 2020 still came out on Wii. I feel like that was the last one to do so.
2019 or 2020 was the last one to come out on Wii. I forget which one, but yeah. They kept it up for as long as they could.
But, okay, you know what? Let's go to that right now, though. Why do you think Sparks of Hope didn't do as well as Kingdom Battle, though, Steve? Like, do you think, like... I don't want to put words in your mouth. You say it first. What do you think?
Honestly, I know we all liked the first game. Even I'm pretty sure you did, even though your strategy is not your bread and butter.
Loved it. I thought it was an excellent game, an excellent strategy game. I like stuff like XCOM, and this is basically XCOM. Grant Kirkhope's best music of his career. Excellent game.
But from where I'm sitting, October was a very busy month, especially in Nintendo land. Like, this was a week apart from Bayonetta 3, which, yes, listen to our show on Bayonetta 3 on how that turned out. But, you know, we all know, Ubisoft, it's going to be $30 in a month. It's going to be $20 in 5 months. Yep. Why buy it right now? And the first game was not immune to that, even though it was attached to Mario. Nintendo didn't make any sort of decree on that like they do for things they make in-house. So after the first time, people might have got burned paying the full price and then seeing it be $30 in time for Christmas, and then decide, well, I'm not doing this shit twice, and even though I'm sure it's very good. So I know I did, especially with Bayonetta 3 coming. Why should I pay $60 for a game I'm not going to play right this second, when I know for a fact that Ubisoft is going to drop it down in price? We're onto their shit at this point. This wasn't sustainable forever. I don't know how long they've been doing. I can't keep track of how long they've been doing it, but it's been at least a decade, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, you were absolutely correct. They dropped prices like nobody's business. We all knew Immortals Phoenix Rising was going to be $20 within X amount of time, and guess what? It was. And guess what? That game didn't sell any copies. Hey, you guys ever hear of Riders Republic? I'm dead serious. Have you ever heard of that game?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that came out in October and no one cares. It's like Steep Part 2. Now with like Extreme Sports, no one gives a shit. Ubisoft keeps trying this idea of like massively like MMO sports online and nobody cares. I don't know why they keep doing this. I think that's what's wrong with the Ubisoft pipeline right now. They keep putting out stuff that nobody actually really wants that much. Like, remember, what was that racing game they had? The Crew? And they did like a sequel too, The Crew 2. Does anyone give a shit? I don't know. I feel like people gave less of a crap about that than like Drive Club at the time. You know, like I don't know sometimes with Ubisoft. But then it's like at the same time, they can't keep sticking to Ass Creed and Far Cry and you know, they haven't made a Division game in a few years, but it's like you can't just keep the last Ghost Recon game bombed so bad They made that Rainbow Six game with zombies. Remember that? It's like, who asked for this? It just feels like something is fundamentally broken with the decision making at Ubisoft right now, Kevin.
Yeah, it just seems overall, not even just price wise, but it seems like they've kind of positioned themselves where the products that they come out with feel cheap quite often, whether it's from recycling the same IP over and over and over, or like you said, coming out with stuff that nobody wants and then selling games for $20 2 months after the fact. It just kind of cheapens the brand as a whole.
Yeah. And we know that's what's going to happen. Like, but to say that they've had such a bad couple of years, it implies that even like Far Cry 6 didn't even do that well, or like, you know what I mean? And that had a lot of hype behind it. So I guess in this financial report, they also mentioned that they're hoping that Assassin's Creed Mirage, I guess that's the one coming out this year, and Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, as well as a quote-unquote large unannounced game to turn things around. I straight up forgot that they were making an Avatar game, personally. Like, did anyone remember that? Because I didn't.
I didn't know they were making an Avatar game, so...
I remember because I remember thinking that it looked fairly cool.
It does.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. It was very early because it was just kind of more CG that they showed off there, but
right. Well, now that this movie's out, they can probably draw from it and whatever without spoilers or whatever. But like, I think an Avatar game could be good. But I just feel like you said, it might just be cheap. It might just be like a Mortals Phoenix Rising where it's like, here's this weird watercolor ass, like strange thing. And like, here you do these tasks in this world. Like I could see an Avatar game by Ubisoft being like so not exciting somehow, except visually to look at. But I guess we'll see. But back to that Beyond Good and Evil 2, like 2 days ago, they went on record to say Beyond Good and Evil 2 is still in development for some reason. Like, who the fuck do you think you're fooling with that? Steve, like, why do they keep doing this? Nobody.
Didn't they fire that guy?
Yeah, Michael Ansel I think Michael Ansel got Me Too'd or something like out of the company.
He got Me Too'd. That was the end of it. You're not fooling anybody by who's working on it.
Nobody. We have not seen a single real asset of that game running on anything ever. We have that 2008 trailer, and then we had one from 2014, I think, where all of a sudden they were all saying motherfucker and stuff, like it was a Tarantino movie.
That was later than that, wasn't it? That was way after.
I remember
14.
this after Switch, but yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought that was 2014, 15. I thought that was more early PS4 era. Okay, anyway.
I would have said 19, maybe. Even
wow, I don't know if it was that late. Anyway, point is, they had that one, and I was like, okay, that's a tonal shift. That's weird. And then we haven't seen anything since. And wasn't that the one where Michael Ansel cried on stage and stuff because he was so moved by the by the Beyond Good and Evils?
Yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah, man. But they went on record to say that. Anyway, I want to know, just between you guys, what's been your Ubisoft consumption over the last couple of years? Because as you guys know, I love The Division, and specifically The Division 2. So that's really my Ubisoft go-to, and they really maintain that game well, and I still like playing it today. It's been out for almost 4 years, and I still like playing that game. The PS5 update on it was excellent. They made it 60 frames a second. It's not a PS5 SKU, but they updated it as much as they could. And they care. I think that's actually the best thing about Ubisoft is that when they make stuff like that, they really do sink into it and they really do update it and maintain it, But anyway, but Kevin, have you played a Far Cry lately, or
when shortly after I got my PS5, because the last few Assassin's Creeds, the last couple multiple Assassin's Creed games before that, it seemed like they were received very well. There was Origins and then Odyssey, I think. So I gave Valhalla a chance, thinking maybe something had changed there. I hadn't played an Assassin's Creed since 360, and sure enough, it was just as cliche and sterile as I kind of expected it to be. I spent maybe I think 10 or 15 hours in that, and then I just had enough of kind of, doing the same gameplay loop over and over. I will admit, and this is a little bit of a guilty pleasure thing, I do have a soft spot for those cheap like licensed game show games that they do. They've got like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, especially Family Feud. We still I've got the Family Feud one on Switch, but we are more prone to pop in the Wii version of there's the Wii version of Family Feud, and then Family Feud Decades, I think, where they've got like the knockoff Richard Dawson on there.
Oh my god.
We still pop those in somewhat regularly.
Do those have like Steve Harvey, or like who do they have on there?
No, it's all just like fake game show host bullshit guy.
See, that would be a bigger selling point.
To the charm.
Okay, yeah. Well, I don't know. See, I feel like it would be a better selling point if they actually had Steve Harvey, or like, you know what I mean, got him to do a few lines or something. But
I do like the purposefully cliche shitty game show host that they like shoehorn in there.
I don't think this is Ubisoft, but there was a Press Your Luck game on Wii, and that was so fucking cheap. That was so bargain basement cheap. Like, it was like, I don't know what they were doing. Steve, have you done an Ubi recently? Because
well, you might remember in a previous creative endeavor, I had the Child of Light Valiant Hearts double pack on Switch, and while I didn't care for Child of Light, and no, not because of the rhyming, I guess that was cute enough. I thought Valiant Hearts was one of the finest things in their library, and that of course meant that no one bought it at the time. And the Ubi Arts Engine, where things look more colorful and whatever, for 2D games like Rayman that they were using for those kinds of things, they're just going to put that in the closet, and that's kind of why we're in this mess right now, because we're relying on all these traditional income streams, I guess. It's, I don't know. But I guess that's my way of saying, Steve liked Valiant Hearts. It's hard for me to get into an ass creed. I played the third one a long time ago, and then I was tempted to buy other ones, and I didn't.
Well, you see, it's funny, actually. They're talking about the next, I don't know if it's this one coming up, Mirage, but they're talking about it like, we're going back to the basics of Ass Creed because nobody, we're sick of this open world shit. So we're just going to do the Ass Creed thing, where you're going to be a thief in this town, and that's what you're going to do, which actually sounds appealing with today's graphics, to like focus down and not try to do this huge thing with naval battles and stuff. And you know what I mean? How they gotten crazy over the years, and just do this like, you're a thief in this town and whatever. Do they still do the real world thing in Ass Creed? Like this, like, okay.
In Valhalla it was in there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I know over the years they've tried to like not do it as much or whatever. But yeah, so I think that's like one of the more interesting parts. Not that I'm saying I'm going to buy it, but whatever. But to cap this all off. So in that financial statement, Yves Guillemot, or however you say it, maybe Steve can do a better French than me.
That's about as close as I was going to get to.
He wrote in that financial report to employees, the ball is in your court to deliver this lineup on time and at the expected level of quality and show everyone what we are capable of achieving. This went over real bad with Ubisoft Paris, to the point where they are going to strike, because that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Because think about it, over the last couple of years, if they've been pissed off over all this stuff at Ubisoft and canceling this and doing that and putting out whatever, that when they read that, they were probably like, fuck you. And I don't blame them. Me too. I mean, you guys laughed when I read that because it was so comically like, why would you say that?
Nothing like driving down responsibility.
Yeah. So basically what they want a 10% increase to all salaries immediately, regardless of annual increases. They want a 4-day work week. They want transparency on the evolution of the workforce, both locally and globally. So how things are going to shake up, or who's going to be let go after this project and shit like that. And enough bullshit, basically. They say a commitment against disguised dismissals and condemnation of abusive managerial policies, which means, because basically they know what Yves Guillemot is saying. If you don't do this, we're going to lay off these people, or we're going to restructure, quote unquote, this team or that team or whatever. And they're saying enough of all that.
Restructured their asshole.
Their asshole. and okay, and this is in quotes, and this made me laugh. And because Mr. Guillemot and his clique only understand the relationship of power, this union is calling on the employees at Ubisoft Paris to go on strike on Friday, January 27th in the afternoon, the union wrote. Yo, if this fucking happens, that's crazy. Ubisoft on strike? That would be some wild shit, Steve.
I can't even think of another time that this happened with a company this big.
I mean, because even the Blizzard stuff, that was more like it wasn't a strike. It was more like we're going to show solidarity by these demonstrations, but it wasn't like we're not coming back to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a wild one. Again, I don't really have a question formed around this one. It was just like, what the fuck? Like, this.
What else do you do when you get talked to like that from the fucking CEO? Like, that doesn't give you a lot of options. Like, so what's the alternative if they didn't do this? Morale just goes down the shitter and everything self implodes in 6 months, anyways.
Yeah, it's the lack of
Ass Creed really becomes Ass Creed.
It's the lack of personal responsibility, obviously, from Guillemot. I mean, he's been, maybe it's time for him to not be the CEO. He's been there for as long as I can remember, probably since the 90s, right? So,
I feel like that name's been there forever.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it from at least the early 2000s. I remember from the early 2000s because remember like 20 years ago when EA tried to like hostile take over Ubisoft? Do you remember that shit?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember he was the CEO at that time saying, this and this against, Electronic Arts and whatever. And I remember being like, oh man, you can't do that to poor little Ubisoft who makes Rayman and publishes Grandia 2. And
Maker
now
of Charlie's Angels for the GameCube.
And now look at him, right? So little has, how quickly things change, right? A few years later, they would have Ass Creed and, all bets are off. But yeah, I don't know. This whole thing has been wild. I want to hit you guys with something a little random because this sort of, I don't want to say broke because it's not news necessarily, but it is something that I found interesting. And it's a little guessing game we're going to play because PlayStation on their blog, they revealed the most downloaded games of 2022. So let's just take a guess. Steve, what do you think? PS5. What do you think the most downloaded game of 2022 is? Games that you pay for, not free to play.
These aren't just Sony games, right?
No, anything. What do you think, Steve, first?
Most downloaded.
Yes.
In 2022.
Yes.
That we don't pay for.
Quit stalling. No, we do pay for it. This isn't free to play.
No, yeah, okay. Man, I want to say everyone jumped on that Ragnarok bandwagon, even though it was very close to the end of the year, but that sounds way too small.
Well, let's do this Family Feud style. God of War Ragnarok was number 2. Number 2 answer, Steve. So, Kevin, can you get number 1?
Was it Forbidden West?
It was not. That was number 8.
Oh.
So that's a big old. That probably wouldn't even appear.
Jeez, no. I would have thought just because Forbidden West came out so much earlier in the year, that would have at least given it some ground on Ragnarok.
It's COD. It's Modern Warfare 2.
Of course it was.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's COD.
No wonder they keep bitching.
Yeah. But okay, let's try again though. Let's do another board. Now let's do the most downloaded free to play game. Now this time Kevin will go first. What was the most downloaded free to play game of 2022?
The free to play COD?
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
That was number 3. So Call of Duty Warzone / Warzone 2.0. So Steve, can you get either number 1 or number 2? Most downloaded free-to-play game.
That's free to play and not things they gave away, right?
No, free to play.
Free to play.
Like Rocket League.
It can't be Rocket League in 2022.
But no, it's not Rocket League. But what do you think there, Steve? Again, Kevin got Call of Duty Warzone. That's number 3. So what would be above that?
Oh man, I don't even know what kids are playing right now. Is it Fortnite because kids are dirty?
Fortnite was number 2, so you beat Kevin. But number 1 was Fall Guys.
Oh yeah, that's free now.
I was gonna say Overwatch 2.
Overwatch 2 was number 5. So
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting results. To round out the top 10, I think Apex Legends looks like it's number 6. Rocket League was number 7. I think I already said that.
I really thought Fall Guys fell off a couple years.
Well, yeah, but now
No
they made
pun
it free
intended.
to play. But now, oh god, LOL. But I didn't even get that.
Kevin, go to bed.
What I really found surprising about this list is that PUBG is number 8, but I always thought that was only on Xbox. I didn't know that was on PlayStation at all. I thought PUBG was like a Xbox console exclusive.
I think it was for a while.
Okay. Well, I guess people are still interested in PUBG. All right. I think that's about it. Sorry, we don't have a whole lot of big questions, but really nothing happened this week. And go ahead.
Before we go, we want to let the Fine Time listeners know that the ball is in your court to make Fine Time a success, and the expected level of quality of Fine Time relies on your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts.
Get on it right now during this break. Okay, we're back, and we're gonna have a talk, everybody. So actually, Kevin, why don't you set this up for us?
Yeah, I thought this would be a good time with the impending release of Hogwarts Legacy and all of the online chatter that's come along with it, to kind of have the art versus artist discussion that we've touched on before in our previous creative endeavor, but to actually kind of get into the inner workings of, I guess, where everybody falls on that from a moral standpoint, whether it be, the creator of the work that we're talking about itself, or the IP in the case of Hogwarts Legacy, and kind of what our thoughts are as far as the obligation of when you can and can't support, or should or shouldn't support the work, even be it financially, or just even playing it if it's not something you've paid for. And I think it's just an interesting discussion. To be honest, I think it's worth starting out, I guess, from my perspective. Personally, I don't really feel the need to justify participating in art to anyone, and I don't think anybody else should have to justify that either. But I just think it's a worthwhile discussion to have, for interest's sake, and maybe everybody will kind of learn something from each other. And I think for me personally, I'm comfortable enough in my position on it that if anybody feels like challenging it, that I'm certainly open to that.
Actually, I want to say first, before you say go on, is that I agree with that, and I think that's important to reiterate one more time, is that, yeah, nobody needs to justify anything to anybody else. Not to me, not to you, not to anybody. If you want to play something or like something or not like something or not play it, that is your fucking choice. I think that is very important to say right off the top. So,
Yep. Fully agree. So yeah, I guess overall, I'm definitely very pro supporting art from the artist, for a couple of reasons that I want to get into. Probably the biggest primary reason for that is that I honestly believe that decision from a financial perspective is 100% inconsequential. Let's take Hogwarts Legacy in specific, for example. I think the amount of money that would go to J.K. Rowling from one sale of that game is 100% literally inconsequential. Now, and I think you could and possibly fairly make the argument that you could compare this to voting. You say, okay, well, my vote doesn't matter, right? It's one vote. But if everybody says that, that does matter because the group acting as a whole is going to have that impact.
And when we talk about anything related to this stuff, I think that is the thing I always disagree with you the most. It absolutely does matter. Not just it does. Because if everyone says, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm just one guy giving $70, whether that goes in J.K. Rowling's pocket or not, it doesn't matter who it goes to. It has to matter. I just feel like on the basis of just existing, it has to matter. So I think that's like whenever we talk about these things, that's the thing I do disagree with you the most. But even though I agree with you on most stuff.
I certainly understand that standpoint because it's completely valid to say if everybody said that, then it makes a huge difference. And I certainly understand that. But when it comes down to it from my personal decision, whether I vote or I choose to buy something or whatever, that one individual instance of it is the only one that I have power over. And so even if I make the decision to not buy something or to not vote, it has no consequence. That's not going to stop everybody else's decision. I think more so than that, I would certainly never go to somebody and say, hey, I bought this and you feel like you shouldn't buy it from your moral perspective, but here's why. I would never push somebody to do that or try and influence that decision. But I think when it does come down to it, realistically, if $5 out of my Hogwarts Legacy purchase goes to J.K. Rowling, it is literally inconsequential, 100%. And I don't think the fact that is compounded by everybody else buying it still doesn't, I guess that responsibility doesn't fall on me from where I see it.
But specifically about Hogwarts Legacy, and you're saying people, influencing, you should buy it, you shouldn't buy it. What I think should stop, what we need to stop doing is the leaps of logic. And of course, this goes beyond Hogwarts Legacy, so I'm going to leave this sort of generic, but we have to stop doing. If you buy X, then you support Y. Or if you watch X, then you believe in Y. Or that's the thing we have to stop, because no, I motherfucking do not believe that. Right? Like that. If and it's like you said, if we're going to agree that each of us are a drop in the bucket, then that means I'm not supporting jack shit. Either way, right? Like if we're going to agree on the premise that like, oh, supporting this is bad or this creator is bad or whatever, and if you buy this or you play this or you talk about this, then you're furthering that's the thing I think absolutely has to stop. And we're seeing it so much. Hogwarts Legacy isn't even out, and I'm so tired of being told what I think about this group of people or that group of people if I do or do not buy this game. I'm not even interested in this game, and I'm tired of it. So it's not me trying to like justify me buying this game. I wouldn't justify it to anybody anyway, even if I was interested. But because I'm not, and I'm already tired of it, I can't imagine what it's like for someone who is. It's like enough already.
Yeah, I fully agree. Honestly, I'm likely going to buy Hogwarts Legacy. And that's not the funny thing is, I sure I enjoy Harry Potter enough, but it's not something I'm a hardcore fan of. I think just from seeing the footage of the game, it's wildly impressive what they've managed to do with that game from a video game perspective. But again, I don't feel the need to justify it. And I guess I also am kind of the opinion, if I'm on Twitter and somebody says, oh, you played this game, you believe in X, then block me. That's fine. I'm not out here to appease anybody by selecting what art I choose to consume and not. Secondly, the other point I want to make is, and I think this is a fairly common point. If I made every purchasing decision strictly based on ethics, I would literally have next to nothing. There's so many unethical purchases that everybody makes every day. We're talking about phones. We talk about, and associated like rare earth materials that go into them, foreign textile industries, that kind of thing. And it's easy to take one thing that's a hot button topic and say, I'm going to exclude this for ethical reasons. But at the same, I don't feel like it's necessarily fair to do that and then say I'm going to turn a completely blind eye on all of the other things that I buy just to have the standard of living that I want. Because realistically, and as much as it's hard to think about, those things aren't ethical for us to buy. The places that make our clothes do not provide a fair standard of living, for a human being, and those are hard things to think about. But if you can't choose to ignore that fact, I think, and still stand on a high horse on a separate topic at the same time. So, condemning people for not foregoing a piece of art feels very hypocritical in that stance. If anybody comes to me that has said I only make my own clothes out of the sheep that I ethically raise, and I don't have a cell phone, and I'm going to give you shit for buying Hogwarts Legacy, I will completely take that laying down. And that's a completely fair criticism. Also criticize me because I've got a smart clothes and I've got some nice smart clothes.
I love smart clothes. The next wave.
Semi-related, don't Google how chocolate is harvested if you want to sleep anytime soon.
Steve, you've kind of been into Harry Potter at some point in your life, right?
See, yes. And, I hate this conversation a lot. Not the one I'm having with you, the one where I go on Twitter and everyone's yelling at me where I'm being told how to feel. Because, yes, I read a very long time ago as a kid and young adult, I read the books and I liked the books, and I saw the movies and I liked the movies. And you know what? After that, I was kind of done with Harry Potter. Not, I hated Harry Potter after that, but, I didn't need more Harry Potter after that in my life. Back in 2016, I went to Universal with my family, and we did both sides of the Harry Potter things at the park, and I thought that was neat. But I'm not going to say I needed more Harry Potter in my life. I thought I didn't need all this extended material in my life. I'm just kind of over it. And like you brought up at the top of this topic, I feel like there's no room for nuance in this subject. There's no room on Twitter or these echo chambers for the guy who's just done with a thing. There's no room for us guys who are just, you know what? I don't want to play Harry Potter. I don't want to play Hogwarts Legacy because I just don't want to play it. There's just no room for that. And for me, it's like, I'd grab it for a tenner at GameStop, or I'd pick it up on PS Plus Royale with cheese down the line. There's no room for any of that kind of nuance in this conversation. And yes, it'd be terrific if we could just, send a real message to all these haters and terrible, terrible people by boycotting. But it's not going to work because, we all get to hide online, and we all know, and everyone likes to show off sales charts. So someone's buying these games, right? All these things are going to sell anyway. So I don't know. I don't like it.
But just while we're on that topic, one other thing I want to say that I hate even more is, you see because there are plenty of people that say, you know what, I'm going to choose not to buy this game because it just makes me feel gross because of what the creator has done. And you know what, that's 100% a valid perspective to put out there online. And then you see the people that say, for all the people that say they're not going to buy this because of JK Rowling, I'm going to go out and buy 10 copies. And it's just it's like, shut the fuck up.
God, those people are the worst.
Why do we need to take a contrarian standpoint on this, just to be a fucking loudmouth?
It's just
you know,
so
and
insane.
so that kind of fuels the other side too, which is frustrating, and it further kills that nuance that Steve is talking about.
Yeah, we're not allowed to, because like people say shit like that all the time, and it's like, no, you're not. I remember, I forget where I saw these comments, but it was about the day one patch for Smash Brothers Ultimate to remove the Native American thing, that Mr. Game & Watch, among other things. But that was one of the things, you know, because they didn't realize, because that was just from the original art. The Japanese developers didn't realize, hey, you know, that's not something we really do anymore. And Nintendo of America caught it, and it's like, okay, in the day one patch, those would be removed. I saw some assholes online being like, well, I'm never going to update the game so I can see it. And it's like, no, you're fucking not, you dumbass.
I guarantee those people never even saw a real Fire Attack Game & Watch.
I thought you were going to say something way more offensive than that. Which I dare not say here. But yeah, those people are so stupid, you know, you always hear that. Though, I mean, look, we've been making it mostly about Harry Potter, but obviously we're talking about this in broad strokes, which is to say, I agree with you, Kevin. There is no such thing as ethical consumption. No such thing. People often extend this to mean ethical consumption under capitalism, but like, I think it applies to anything. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't draw lines for ourselves if we feel uncomfortable about something. There are things that I draw a line on. I think me and Steve struggle with Doug Tennaple, the creator of Earthworm Jim. And I think, you know, Kevin, you know what's going on with him there too. I'm not going to go, if anyone wants to look, go ahead and look him up. You can research that on your own time if you don't know. But I stopped Patreoning somebody because they interviewed him, like straight up. And this was like shortly after we found out who he was. And that was so to me that I just couldn't. You know what I mean? I just don't want to hear an interview with Doug Tennaple just talking about a happy-go-lucky guy. Oh, here, we're going to talk about Earthworm Jim like it's the 90s. No, it's different now. Okay? Like, sorry.
I need to hop on this too, because the internet's a different place than it was when we first started using it, right? I remember in the early 2000s, we got our relatively new DVD player that we could finally afford, and me and my dad are watching Chinatown. I love that fucking movie. Roman Polanski developed that fucking movie. Now, what did he do? A lot of things I'm not allowed to say on here. If we don't want to, you know, get kicked off iTunes. Do you know when I found out about that? Another year or two later, when on a Family Guy DVD, when they cracked a joke about that, and I had to do additional research. Today, everybody knows everything about everybody, and I'm sorry, maybe it's because I'm older, but I'm not doing a background check on everybody that works on a thing that I consume. I'm just not. And I'm sorry that I don't know how everyone has the energy for this sometimes.
Baby Driver came out just as Kevin Spacey was getting Me Too'd, if you remember. And I fucking love Baby Driver. That is a great movie. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I thought it was great. And I remember thinking to myself, I could never just tear up my tickets. Well, I cannot. You know what I mean? First of all, I already bought them, so it's stupid. So I may as well go watch the movie. Secondly, you remember when all the dumb conservatives were destroying their Keurig coffee machines? And it's like, you already bought the fucking Keurig. Why are you destroying it? You already gave them their money.
Dumbasses.
You dumbasses. Now you can't even make any coffee, and they have your money, you shit for brain. Anyway, but you know, I'm not melting all my Blu-rays of Tarantino movies distributed by the Weinstein Company, or, you know what I mean? Like, at some point, you just have to sit down and say, bad people make art, you know, like you can't just live your life that way. At least I can't, you know, sorry. Okay. That makes you better than me if you can do that stuff. But I just can't see that those movies and like being tainted by those bad people, because it takes literally hundreds of people to make a movie. It takes hundreds of people sometimes now to make a video game. Right? So like, what's a guy who created Dead Space and now made Callisto Protocol? Dave, something, whatever his name is. Yeah. He has some stuff there. He's just a fucking prick. I don't even like. You know what I mean? Like that's sometimes enough to be like, oh man, I want to buy a game by this guy, right? And it's just like, you know, at some point.
I mean, talking about another recent thing, last week, Justin Roiland, the co-creator of Rick and Morty, got in some big Me Too trouble last week.
Yep.
And, you know, this last season of Rick and Morty was very so-so, really. So, yes, lots of people might have their jobs in jeopardy or whatever, but what I'm trying to say is I find it easier to not have to have a thing all the time in my life. Like at this point, if they're having such a hard time producing the show, which is a thing that's happened before due to weird Adult Swim scheduling shenanigans and whatever else goes on behind closed doors that apparently everyone knew about for years, but you know, the only thing that ever comes out is weird things about condiment shortages that they inadvertently caused. I mean, good on you for, you know, being better than me again, like everyone's better than Andre, but but at the same time, you know, if it takes forever or maybe never getting to Rick and Morty season 7, I'm not exactly going to sit here and cry about it on the air. I'm not.
The thing I find personally that's a little bit interesting when I think we talk about, you know, just that idea of like, okay, now this just makes me feel, you know, uncomfortable about the material, not where I need to take a stand, but I just don't feel like I can enjoy it. I think for me, I find that happens a lot easier with things where you can get the tone of the creator's thoughts more so than like the severity of their sins. So you talk about Rick and Morty, you know, Justin Roiland very much comes through there. I think music is a very big one. A good example is Aaron Lewis from Stained. I was never a big Stained fan to begin with, but it turns out that Aaron Lewis is just a fucking massive prick.
Yep.
And just a general shitbag. And now anytime I hear Stained, you know, I just start like automatically drawing parallels between his lyrics and then some of the shit that he said outside of that, and I can start finding different understanding, and that makes it, you know, uncomfortable to listen to almost.
Yes, I mean, music is a place where that can happen, and my example is R. Kelly. I was a big R. Kelly person. We know the trouble he's gotten in. Especially recently, he just went to jail. In fact, he just released a record from jail called "I Admit It." He literally did this.
Serious?
I swear to God. I swear to God.
What?
Yes. I haven't listened to it.
What label put that out?
I haven't. Well, look, man, if I were a record label, what could I say no to that? Like, honestly, see, that's the thing. That's the moral quandary, isn't it? Yeah. Could you say no?
Yeah, that's fair.
Could you say no? Fair. I couldn't. I wouldn't be above it, and I admit it right now. I have not listened to I Admit It, though. So even that's too far for me. But, like, you know, there are considerations in this day and age. One of them being with the way we now listen to music streaming and the way it supports artists. Because before, you just pop on a CD, buy it for $16.99, you listen to it. But now, if I go stream a R. Kelly song on Tidal, that goes in his pocket. He's the songwriter, he's the performer, he's the producer, he does everything. And it's like you were saying, hard to separate it because with Justin Roiland, because it's so part that Rick and Morty is so him. R. Kelly is him on record, right? So it's very hard.
And
to
it's
be
called
like,
I Admit It. I'm talking about. There's not even parallels to draw there.
Of course not, but of course I'm talking about listening to the old shit. You know what I mean? But like right when those allegations came out, like 20 years ago, with the P tape and everything. The very next year, he put out a record that was like one of the most popular of his career because it had the jams. No one cared, right? You have the jams. You are popular. Chris Brown has the jams. Doesn't matter if he smacked the shit out of Rihanna. No one will care. He has the jams, right? That's what it is. James Brown, maybe one of the greatest artists of our lifetime, has done unspeakable things to women. And this is in the 60s when you didn't find out about that shit, right? Who knows what kind of artists have done God knows who to God knows what. in the past, right? And if we find out, are we gonna if we find out John Lennon raped women, I'm sorry to be that extreme about it, but are we gonna just cancel the Beatles? What do we do? Right? So especially with people who are dead. You know what I mean? I remember that Michael Jackson doc came out a few years ago and there was more allegations in there. And then it was and my thing was the man is fucking dead. Who cares? But you know what I'm trying to say? It is.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, it is so far past the point of litigating it. He's dead. R. Kelly's alive, so we can litigate that. I remember that third Lady Gaga record. She had a duet with R. Kelly. I forget the name of the song. I think it doesn't matter. When this latest round of allegations came out, I want to say in 2018-19, she wanted to remove that song from that record that she did with R. Kelly. And I think she did. I don't remember if she did or not. And my thing, I didn't really get it at the time because I was that was a single. That was a big hit song. The knowledge has been obtained. It happened, right? You can remove it from the record, but that doesn't erase that. You know what I mean? It was a thing.
Yep.
We can delete every Beatles record off the face of the planet if we find out something about Paul McCartney. That has already become part of pop culture forevermore. It happened. So I didn't get it. But maybe she, there's other reasons. Maybe she didn't want to profit off that song anymore because of reasons, which is totally her right. Maybe she just didn't want to have it out there any more than she had to. But think about that just as an aside. We're in a time where we can delete songs from a record because we don't have hard copies anymore. I mean, we do, but we don't, that's not how we listen to music. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's a strange time we're in, I guess, with that kind of stuff. But, that's her right to do that because she felt uncomfortable. I play Overwatch 2, then plays Overwatch 2. There are people who used to play Overwatch 1 with us who don't anymore because they're uncomfortable with the whole Blizzard thing. That's fine. Mm-hmm. We don't chastise them and be like, well, you better, you know what I mean? Because with me and Vin, it's it doesn't matter to us. We've been playing for 6 years already. Blizzard has our attention and time and money. Well, okay, if we stop now, what does that do? Right? Except just denying a game that we want to play. It doesn't actually do anything. We've already contributed so much to this ecosystem that who cares? That's how we feel about it anyway. But yeah, there's just so many ways we can go with this, I guess. Do you, Kevin, do you have any particular thing that you used to like where the creator's such a you mentioned Stain, but do you have any others where you're like, oh man, I just can't?
Yeah, I don't, it's hard to even when you think about music and when you start looking, there's a ton of artists that, there's a vast spectrum of being shitty.
Yes. There is.
But yeah, none that are really, really sticking out. I was never a big Kid Rock fan, thankfully.
Oh my God. I never liked him. I have never liked Kanye West. I never at any point in my life. It's not that I've disliked him. I was always more of a fan of his production, but that's another thing, right? Jay-Z, what's that record? It came out on September 11th. Shockingly. The Blueprint. 8 of those 12 songs on The Blueprint are produced by Kanye West. And that's considered one of the best hip hop albums of all time. And I agree. So we're just not going to listen to Blueprint anymore because 75% of the material is produced by Kanye West. I don't think we're going to do that. So, man, maybe I would love to see an alternate timeline where Kanye never rapped a single bar and he just stayed a producer and we never got to know him and he just stayed behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Kanye is a good one because I do think Kanye's got some bangers, especially with Jay-Z. There's the track that I'm not allowed to say about the two men in Paris.
I
think that's probably in my top 5 favorite rap songs of all time.
Really? Yeah. See, people love that song. I like that song too. That's a great record. I don't know if you listen to the whole thing, but it's pretty good. But yeah, man, I'm not going to toss out any of those early 2000s Kanye productions, sorry. There is one thing though, and I was never a fan of this band, but a couple of my friends were at the time. And when it went down, it was nope. There was a band called Lost Prophets. I don't know if you remember them, Kevin.
I've heard of Lost Prophets, but I don't know anything about the issues.
Okay, the lead singer got caught molesting toddlers and stuff, like really, really bad child shit. And that band went kaput immediately. And my friends who used to listen, they were like, well, nope, that, no, thank you. Like that's something where you're just like, okay, I can never not think about that anymore if I listen to Lost Prophets. So no, thank you. That's an instant revulsion. I was never into that band, so I didn't have that problem. But my two friends who were like, nope. But shit like that happens and you can't, but I guess all I'm saying is we're all out here picking and choosing, right? We choose sometimes things to make us uncomfortable, sometimes they don't, and we should never, in my opinion, out there. If Steve wants to be out there bumping I Admit It by R. Kelly, like go right ahead. I mean, whatever, man.
Steve hasn't bumped a music on purpose in years.
Well, maybe you should start bumping a music, but not that, something else.
You heard it here first. Andre is not burning his Kids Say the Darndest Things series on Blu-ray.
Absolutely not. All right. I think you guys got any finishing thoughts besides that? Because
yeah, release the Yuji Naka P tape. We all know.
From prison.
We all know that's coming.
He's going to release a game from prison called I Admit It. It's just Rodea the Sky Soldier with like weird words in the sky with like endless like Star Wars scrolling text about what he did wrong. Oh boy!
You don't think it's based on Balan Wonderworld instead?
It's true masterpiece. The Knight's Jester just flying through the air, just saying, insider trading in Japanese characters. Okay. Real quick question before we get out of here. This is a really random question, but I just want to ask you guys: have you ever, Steve or Kevin, leveled any character in a JRPG to 99? Because I have never done that. It's never been necessary to do that in any game I've ever played. But like people like play Final Fantasy VII, like old, PS1 version, like level everything to 99 and get like this material. It's like, why would you do that? It's like not necessary.
Well, they do kind of make it necessary in Bravely Default for reasons that I'm not going to get into in case a remake comes out soon. But if it's not necessarily, I'm not usually in the habit of that. No.
Kevin, have you ever even came close?
Not even close. The hardest I remember grinding on Golden Sun: The Lost Age, if you transferred all of your shit and you had completed everything, there was the hidden final boss Dullahan. I don't know if anybody else did that.
I remember. Yeah.
I remember having to grind for like fucking 6 hours to beat Dullahan after beating the game. I fucking struggled with that.
That sounds nightmarish. No, I never did that.
But
I think the closest
I ever to 99.
I think the closest I ever came was Shin Megami Tensei 5. I leveled the Nahobino to 93, Steve. That's like really the closest I've ever came. And like
mine's in the 80s.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to ask. I never done it. And I guess you guys haven't either. All right. That's our little show for today. Find Time Podcast on Twitter. You can follow us there. Check the description of this podcast to find links to all of our socials as well. See you next time, guys. Bye.